So I got a funny little story about Namor issue 1. For those of you that have been following for a while, know that just a couple of years ago I moved to where I am now. With that said, one of my buddies came and visited me, and he's not so much a comic book reader, but he's known me for a while now, and he has ended up with a comic collection, whether he liked it or not. So he came with me to the local comic shop scene here, and I'm flipping through, and I'm info dumping on him left and right. Poor guy. I appreciate his patience, but I'm looking for New Mutants, which I did find a copy of 98. I just couldn't justify $500. So if you guys have a copy of New Mutants 98 that you want to get rid of, hit me up. Hint, hint. Christmas is coming. Anyway, but I happened across NA, and I don't remember how I got in the conversation, but I said, "Oh, look, Namor," and I started going through how Namor was kind of reinvented. And so I just pulled one up, and I said, "Yeah, this is what the cover looked like." And I went, I said, "I'm looking for number 1," and this is in my hand. And I went, "No, no." And then I read, oh, it's because we were having a conversation about John Byrne. Anyway, I pulled this out, and I'm going on saying, "Man, I wish I need to find issue 1." And then my brain decided to finally kick the ADHD out of the way for a moment. And I looked at the cover and I went, "No." My friend went, "Isn't that number 1?" And I went, "Dude!" And so I immediately ripped that out of the back issue bins and I put it under my arm and I brought it home with me. And now I am sharing it with you. So the story has been shared. We are all now one happy little family. So this is Namor issue 1 when John Byrne revived him. And it even says here, "Out of the depths and into the 90s." And I still love this cover. Now, I don't know, like I'm not super versed on Namor, but yeah, let's just go into it together. I kind of pieced together what I know. I mean, I know he has the hots for Sue Storm. He's also a mutant, so he kind of always sort of tends to work with the X-Men. Tends to try to seduce Emma, and you kind of start to see that Namor has a particular type, aka wands, which, if Scott ever gets back with Jean, which I don't know at this point because I don't care about modern X-Men. Anyway, I'm not following. Okay, 6 months ago, somewhere in the South Pacific, nothing wrong with the equipment that I could find. Whatever this blip is, it's real. Now, again, I've talked about this. When you were going to relaunch a comic book and reintroduce a character with a kind of a fresh take, you need to find a way to make it interesting. Now, when I first opened this up, I was like, okay, this is interesting. We're following these characters, but where's Namor? So you're trying to figure out what this blip is on the radar. And it's moving faster than anything biological has any business moving. You sure it's alive? The Navy's rumored to have secret testing grounds in this area. It's nothing they could have cooked up, unless they're strapping jet engines on dolphins, which I would put it past them. I let up. Hold it. It's turned 90 degrees. It's coming straight up at us. And we just see this. Now, with that said, when it says it's coming straight at us, this is how you guys can tell that I have a hard time keeping things straight. Immediately my mind goes to Jimbo and Ned from South Park when they're talking about having to justify hunting, and it's coming right at us. Then he could shoot it. So every time I hear that, I hear Ned's, or not Ned's, but Jimbo's voice in my mind. It's coming straight for us, and starts ripping through deers and whatnot. Oh my god. Anyway, so I opened the book. Welcome to my mind, y'all. Especially when I'm a little over caffeinated. Sleep. That word. We see the swoosh, and then pure John Byrne purpose, beginning a bold new chapter in the saga of the Submariner, written and drawn by John Byrne, inked by Bob Wiacek, colors by Glynis Oliver. And then I'm not sure how this is supposed to go, because this says letters by Ken Lopez. So, oh, there it is. Okay, I was like, who the hell is this Terry, the editor? And then Tom DeFalco, editor in chief. So big names. And I love that Tom DeFalco, oh my god. John Byrne and Glynis Oliver team back up, kind of part of the old school Uncanny X-Men band back together to give us Epilogue 1, The Boiling. This is what I meant by this is how you reintroduce a character. Because you're thinking, is this a heroic pose? But it looks like he just got uppercutted. Like he just took an uppercut to the face. I promise that my mental faculties will eventually come back. Dad? What was that? Is that? It looked like, but he's dead. This is what I mean by I don't know a whole lot about Namor's history. So apparently the last run he was pronounced dead. If you guys can kind of help me tie that in continuity-wise, I'd very much appreciate it. That's what the newspaper said, Carrie. But I don't know of anyone else that could do that. We don't know for sure. And so they start to hunt down the signal. Head pounding. Difficult to keep thoughts straight. Tropical growth. Heat. I must still be in the Pacific. Searching. What? A village? Surface dwellers. Worshipping for an idol modeled in the form of an airplane. And then Namor just goes unhinged. They're like, outsiders! He dares intrudes upon the sacred ceremonies. Death! And they throw a spear at him. Did you really think your puny spear could harm one whose body can withstand the crushing pressure of the ocean floor? You have accomplished nothing but arousing the anger of the avenging son of Atlantis. First, I shall dispose of this preposterous icon, and then I'll show you the true face of godlike power. And so just in these few moments, we do see the ego size of, but we're thinking, wow, he's really being an asshole. And he goes, so long. Prince Namor? Who? No, it can't be. The Lady Dorma, alive once more. Namor, please, we want to help. But the image shimmers. It's not Dorma, it's Marina. Beloved Marina. And what's he saying? I'm not sure, Carrie. I thought I heard the names of his two dead wives. Again, we've gone over Alpha Flight issue 2. When Marina kind of went a little batshit crazy and went to Atlantis just about disemboweling Puck, and she meets Namor, which we kind of find out that she does have Atlantean ties. When the hell between Alpha Flight issue 2 and 1990's number 1 did they get married? And when the hell did she die? I'm so confused. Comics, right? But these are the little gaps that I need. But it's interesting. Anyway, we're trying to figure out how this father and daughter team are able to track Namor and know the names of his dead wives and whatnot. And so we go into Epilogue 2, Family History. Well, Namor, and he actually agrees to come with them. He says, let me help you. It's been an hour. How do you feel now? Better. Much better. In fact, Ron, I feel. Looks like your theory was right on the nose, Dad. The blood imbalance was the key to his personality fluctuations. Your little recycling device has corrected that for now. So we realize that Namor wasn't being an egotistical prick. There's something wrong with his blood. And with that, we come to find out that this old man has been studying Namor since he was little. And he goes into Namor's history of how there was shipping the Leonard, let's see. The year was 1920. The place near the South Pole aboard the icebreaker Oracle under the command of Leonard Mackenzie. And the ship is essentially dropping bombs to break up the ice. But what's happening is it's destroying Atlantis. And so the king sends his daughter to find out what it is. And she falls in love with Mackenzie, which these two, kind of like Aquaman's backstory, they fall in love and they give birth to Namor. The pink-skinned boy she chose to name Namor, the avenging son. Of course, shorn of the details which are not publicly known. This is the tale of my birth. The same story, in fact, I once related to the assembled ambassadors of the United Nations. And so he's thinking, how do you know who I am? He goes, you may not know, you may not remember me. But he says, when I was a little boy, And this kind of goes back to crap. What was the name of the team? I think it was not the Captain America, Namor, and the original Human Torch that helped fight again in World War II. I can't remember if they were called the Defenders or what they were called, but anyway, they were returning home. They were given a hero's parade. He, as a little boy, ends up drowning, and Namor saves him. He says, "I was so infatuated by you that I studied you in Atlantean history as much as I could get my hands on. I don't expect you to remember any of that, do you? It was almost 50 years ago, and I have had an unfortunate tendency to memory failure. But how does that bring you from Harlem to the South Pacific, especially with the blood recirculator? Oh, I've been tinkering with that for 40 years, Namor, ever since I first suspected an oxygen imbalance was behind some of your problems. Like I said, I've been fascinated by you most of my life. In fact, right after you flew away back in 1944, I dragged that old bite to the nearest talk shop and pawned it for enough money to buy my first book on marine biology." So essentially, what it means is, if we, and I didn't even know this, so this was for me a cool little Marvel history anecdote. Traditional Atlanteans and Marvel are blue. That's why the recent release of Namorita is blue, even though we all want the different version to look more like the new Warriors. Anyway, but because he was fathered by both Atlantean and human, he ended up a different, more, what do you call it, human tone instead of the blue tone of the Atlanteans. But because of that, now if he spends too much time in the water, his blood gets imbalanced. If he spends too much time on Earth, on dry soil, the same thing happens. And it's all thanks to his DNA. And so that kind of adds a new layer. So this kind of reminds me of John Byrne revitalizing Namor, just like Jeff Jones revitalized Green Lantern, Flash. But Namor decides to use the riches from sunken ships to start a new endeavor on dry land, which is what kind of kicks off the new series. I don't want to give away too much, but essentially it turns from traditional Marvel storytelling to corporate espionage. And it is such a quick, like a weird turnaround, but it works and it flows so smooth that you want to know what happened. And right in this book, like I said, you open up and you're thinking, who the hell are these two people tracking a blip? Who cares? You start to care about them and you get depth. And John Byrne, just like Chris Claremont and Louise Simonson and Ann Santi, that team that gave us the X-Men all through the years, Alpha Flight, thing happens right here in the pages of Namor issue. So y'all, if you've enjoyed what you see, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever they get your action figures and comics, and check out this series. This is definitely one that was slept on. And if you've enjoyed this, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy Atlantean bell next, subscribe. That way I get to upload content. You guys get notified. Come to the channel. I love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.